In the late 60s, the New Zealand phenomenon built a racing motorcycle with his own hands for the prestigious Grand Prix 500 class, using a powerful two-stroke boat engine. He defeated the factory teams of MV Agusta, Yamaha, and their racers, participating in races on his own and fixing his motorcycle with his own hands during the breaks between races. His creation was cutting edge for its time, and his technical solutions would later become a staple of two-stroke engineering. They called him Friendly Kiwi. His name is Kim Newcomb. Kim Newcomb was born in Nelson, New Zealand in '44 and grew up in Auckland, where he met the love of his life, Janine. After marrying, Kim and Janine moved to Australia in '63 to fulfill Kim's passion for motorcycle racing in a better country. Kim was a natural-born racer who possessed an unstoppable passion for motorcycles and demonstrated outstanding talent on dirt tracks, to the surprise of their more experienced opponents. Soon Kim got into water racing, which had a big impact on his life. As a ship engine mechanic in Melbourne in the late 60s, Newcomb first encountered the Koenig outboard motor, compact two-stroke engine with a volume of 494 cubic centimeters. Kima was blown away by this simple and powerful engine, and he wanted to meet the person behind its creation. In the year 1968, Kim meets Dieter Koenig, who offered Kim a position at his factory located in Germany. So Kim and Janine packed their bags again and set off halfway around the globe. Shortly after beginning work at Koenig, Kim was given a captivating chance to merge the Koenig engine with a motorbike. German racer Wolf Braun was developing a motorcycle chassis based on the Koenig engine, but soon had to give up on the project. Dieter asked Kima to take on the development. Without thinking twice, I fully dedicated myself to this business. But despite Kim's enthusiasm and Braun's experiments, Koenig was still a boat engine. Putting him on a motorcycle was no easy feat. It took a ton of work just to get him up and running, let alone winning races. Because the Koenig initially lacked a transmission, Kim had to install one. This connected it to the clutches of a 6-speed Norton gearbox in order to ensure proper functioning of the vehicle. To create space for the box, we needed to raise the lengthy engine slightly from the rear, resulting in a unique and unconventional look. Another issue was cooling, because similar to most outboard motors, Koenig cools using water in which it is directly positioned. This engine simply wasn't designed for use in other conditions. Through some tinkering, we've come up with a kick-ass radiator and a one-of-a-kind crankcase cooling system. About the quirks of a two-stroke engine, power decreases when the crankcase overheats. Problem cleverly solved, with a tubular magnesium tray with its own water cooling. This skid plate obstructed placing the exhaust underneath, so the cylinders were flipped and the exhaust was directed upwards, next to the intake. This led to a problem with packaging, as the carburetors took up space between the exhaust manifolds. The fully vertical intake holes with downward draft also caused problems, since most motorcycle carburetors had side draft. This required the use of the American Tillotson diaphragm, designed for multi-position use. This was utilized on Harley-Davidsons and snowmobiles, but not in road racing, which indicated restricted tuning potential in comparison to carburetors of other models. Despite the flaws in the already built prototypes, the Koenig 500 turned out to be a cutting-edge machine. For that time, it was a kick-ass design, packed with a bunch of innovations that later became the gold standard for two-stroke racing engines. Swing valves are operated by a rotating disc that separates the carburetor from the crankcase opening. The crankshaft rotates the disc, opening and closing the holes and accurately determining the intake time. In Koenig, a disc was used, moved by a toothed belt, rotating 90 degrees on the right side of the engine, above the crankcase. The expansion chamber exhaust is essential for properly tuning a two-stroke engine, and Koenig was one of the pioneering motorcycles to use massive chambers, which later became a common and widely adopted feature on two-stroke motorcycles in the industry. The objective is to redirect the exhaust gas pulses back, as the intake and exhaust ports on a two-stroke engine are open simultaneously, allowing cross-flow and resulting in inevitable fuel mixture leakage into the exhaust system. The ideal two-stroke mixture occurs when the chamber is filled completely, without turbulence or any unburned mixture leaking through the exhaust ports. Expansion chambers reflect the pulses of the exhaust gas flow back to push the fuel mixture back into the cylinder, thereby increasing pressure. Increased efficiency leads to greater power. In 1969, when the initial prototype was constructed, it was producing 68 horsepower and boasted a number of impressive specifications. Despite its sturdy construction, the engine turned out to be fragile after being adapted for use on a motorcycle. Koenig earned a reputation as a fast motorcycle when it didn't blow up and didn't eat gears. To make Koenig competitive, substantial enhancements, testing, and adjustments were necessary, which Kim literally carried out spontaneously. In 1970, the power was increased to 75 horsepower, which was a serious feat for a motorcycle weighing just over 113 kilograms. Later versions had a power of about 90 horsepower. Knowing Koenig better than anyone else, Kim wanted to fix its flaws and make it reliable. It was inevitable that Kim would become the primary driver. However, Kim was not a racer on the highway, as he did not possess an FIM racing license. He never raced on asphalt, but his performances defied the rules and his feats became legendary, challenging the established norms of the sport. He started racking up victories at an astonishing pace. Rumors about the German-made motorcycle dominating the roads quickly spread. The fans in the area went wild. Kim became a highly regarded racer, rapidly obtaining an FIM license and demonstrating his expertise in road racing as well. And this was on a motorcycle that he actually constructed himself, that he maintained himself and repaired himself. As a greenhorn with no experience, Kim had to work with a tight budget. While participating in the 572 Grand Prix, he worked solo, fixing his motorcycle between races. Despite factory brigade's difficulties with less than ideal funding, Kim achieved noticeable success. He took third place in the grueling Grand Prix of West Germany, held at the Nürburgring, during his first performance on the legendary challenging track. Koenig was a real speed demon, able to leave the champion MV Agusta in the dust on the straightaways. Unfortunately, Kim's season was cut short due to the crash at the Dutch Grand Prix, which resulted in him suffering a serious back injury. He secured 10th place at the end of the season, which is an impressive result for a rookie racer who didn't complete a full race schedule. Fully recovered, Kim came back for the 73rd season. He was constantly getting on the podium. After winning the Grand Prix of Yugoslavia, the New Zealand underdog with a Kiwi bird on his helmet became the championship leader in points. An unknown racer who built his own motorcycle based on a boat engine turned the racing world upside down. By the end of the season, Kim and his Koenig were invited to a series in Great Britain at the Silverstone track. There were rumours that John Player Norton's team was planning to take on Koenig on their home turf, and they offered Kim a pretty good amount for it. The race wasn't anything serious, but she gave Kim the opportunity to earn extra money until the end of the season, and he was just thrilled to be invited. A 680 cubic version of Koenig was prepared, and Koenig and Kim crossed La Manche with their family to participate in the event. The day before the race, Kim took a stroll to familiarize himself with the track. He noticed that one specific section of the slope had a dangerous dip right before a sharp turn, surrounded by a wall made of wooden beams. Worried about safety, he reached out to Vernon Cooper, the track manager, with a request to put the hay in front of the wall. Cooper was pissed off. He angrily rejected Kim and threatened to bite him off if he dares to complain again. The next day, on August 11th, Kim was leading the race for 6 laps before making a mistake at the Stowe, flying off the track and crashing into the wall. They took him to the local hospital while he was unconscious. Kim never regained consciousness, and on August 14th his brain was declared dead. He was 29 years old and posthumously placed second in the 1973 500 Grand Prix, defeating Agostini and finishing behind Phil Reed. After Kim's death, Dieter Koenig didn't want anything to do with the damn motorcycle project anymore. He was really freaked out by this event and never pursued it further. Kim Newcomb, an underdog in the Grand Prix races, yet a bold and talented driver who challenged class differences and surprised the world by threatening MV Agusta's dominance with incredible machines, defied expectations and shook the racing world with his remarkable skills. No one expected that a friendly, quiet New Zealander would challenge the racing hierarchy, let alone lead the 500 Class World Championship, working almost entirely independently and performing at the highest level of sports. Back in the day, he was a legend, gone too soon in the prime of his life, in the most unfortunate circumstances. A fateful accident that he foresaw and tried to prevent.